Hi, welcome to Soulmate Talk. I am your host, Geozuwa, and tonight's topic is going to be dealing with crisis before, during, and after relationships. And for this show, what we're doing here, what our goal is to bring you the most important information for you to find, attain, maintain a beautiful, perfect, healthy, loving relationship. So our goal is to give you all the information necessary for you to use to find that perfect person, or if you are in a relationship, to maintain a beautiful, perfect, healthy relationship. This is my co-host, Kristen. Say hello.
Hello.
Really say hello.
Hello. Hi. How's everyone?
And our guest today is Keith Singer. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. First and foremost, thanks for having me, Joshua. I really do appreciate it. And so basically, I was a NYPD police officer for 20 years. And during the course of that time, I saw many different crises happen. And going through these crises and talking with the people and figuring out how I could help them, toward the end of my career, I realized that when somebody's going through a crisis, that there's really nobody there sometimes to help them. And when you're going through a crisis, your mental state is not the same as if it were before the crisis.
Absolutely.
So therefore, basically what I did was I started a company which is called Imprimis Crisis Management.
Okay.
I deal with personal crisis. I deal with business crisis. I deal with a wide variety of crises. So I set this business up because I want to help the people that at the particular time can't help themselves because they're not thinking straight. I'm there to think, not for them, but to guide them through the crisis so it doesn't reach the boiling point.
Right. And actually, too many people get to the boiling point and way over the boiling point.
Well, that's one of the problems. They don't seek help, and then it gets to the boiling point, and then it overflows.
And a lot of times it's too late to get that help. And, well, in the situation that they're in the crisis.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's definitely best to have someone not involved in the situation from outside, such as yourself, to help them and to guide them through their difficult.
Yeah, that'd be correct. I mean, third party is definitely the way that you want to go because I don't have a personal connection to it, so I can make a better decision.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. You're also a college professor?
I am. I teach criminal justice at Monroe College in Westchester and in the Bronx.
Very nice. Now, one of the things before someone gets into a relationship, a lot of people, when they're looking for that someone, let's say they get head over heels for that person and they start dating, there's a lot of red flags, and then you have friends that notice the red flags, but the person doesn't want to hear it because they're so into that person, so they're not seeing it, or they don't want to see those flags. What are some of the biggest flags to look for before a person actually, or when they start dating someone? Because there are some flags that, if not addressed right away, you can wind up in a marriage for 10 years, 20 years, and that red flag, it just, boom, and you're done.
Okay, so one of those red flags would be the lack of communication. If during the beginning of a relationship, you cannot communicate well, or everything is an argument, or you're disagreeing a lot, and things of that nature, things will just get exacerbated when you get married.
Okay, so there's different opinions, and people do argue about certain things. So sometimes arguments can be healthy. So if you're saying an unhealthy argument and you're saying not addressing it.
Well, what I'm saying is basically
communicating.
I'm not talking about your typical arguments.
Okay.
All right. For sure. Yeah, you're going to have an argument over here and over there. We all get that.
Right.
All right. We've all been in a relationship and we've all had arguments before.
Right.
But what I'm saying is this: if there's something about the other person that you want to address, but you feel that you can't address to that person,
then you
for some reason, that's a lack of communication.
Right.
And before you know it, that lack of communication is going to turn into resentment. And once you have that resentment, and hopefully you're not married, but if you are, resentment's going to kill your marriage.
Absolutely. I agree.
But that could also be you don't feel like you could communicate it to them because of abuse, whether it's verbal or.
Well, absolutely. It could be anything.
There are signs. I think there are signs before you
what
get
are
into
the
a committed
signs
relationship.
Of an abusive, not even necessarily physical abuse, but.
And, you know, I'm sorry, even with the communication, what you're saying about the communication, sometimes, it all ties in. Insecurity, because sometimes a person's insecure about themselves, who they are, so they can't voice their disappointment or communicate exactly how the other person is making them feel. And of course, yes, it's going to boil up inside. Even if the person stays in that relationship their entire life, they're going to be miserable.
Absolutely.
Our goal on this show is for everyone, if they're going to enter a relationship, never ever be miserable. And one of the key points is communication.
Yeah, you definitely need communication. Now, you had something, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
No,
apologize.
It's okay. What are signs of not even so much physical abuse, but mental abuse, a controlling person? What are some of the red flags?
Okay, so before you even get married and you start your relationship, what the person's going to try to do is to try to suppress some of those things about their personality that they might feel the other person might not like. However, at times there will be a red flag where you could see that personality coming out, the personality that they don't want to show you right now in the
Right.
beginning of the relationship, whether it be mentally saying, well, I look like gained a little weight, or, I just got a promotion. Well, yeah, a lot of people can get that promotion. Something like that.
Right.
And if you see, that's a red flag. Not
Absolutely a red flag.
They're not doing it like at you, saying, "Oh, you stink," because
Right.
you don't deserve the promotion. But they will throw things in there, and mentally you'll say, maybe possibly to yourself, "Well, Jim, maybe anybody can get this. Really, maybe it's not really a big deal."
Right.
Or something like that.
Try to keep you down.
Right, try to keep you down and things of that nature. So that's what they'll do. And you'll see these red flags. It's whether or not you want to accept those red flags, that's the way the person is. Because in a lot of times, what will happen is this. It's that, okay, they're a little overbearing. Okay, they might talk down to me a little bit. But that's going to change. Once we get married, everything's going to be beautiful. And what marriage does, it really doesn't change, but it will exacerbate that person's behavior because now they feel really comfortable. They don't have to try to impress you
Right.
anymore. And then their true attitude and their true feelings will come out. And those are feelings or attitudes that you might not want to see.
Or if they're really good, I've noticed that they do a combination, so you're a little confused. Like they'll, I don't know, not
They'll give
like
like
the
a half
way.
a compliment?
No, like they won't. Sorry, they don't like the way you dress, so they're trying to change it subtly, making suggestions.
well,
And this-
absolutely.
But they'll say, "Go out. I don't care what you do.
Yes,
Go hang out with
yes.
your friends." So you're like, "Oh, he's
Well,
not
yeah,
controlling. He doesn't care."
Absolutely 100%. That's the mental portion of it.
Right.
Okay, they'll do it in a subtle manner at first.
Right.
But as they progress with the relationship, it's not going to be subtle anymore.
Right.
It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay, so you mentioned going out. Plenty of people get into a relationship and then even get married where they go into that relationship, they go into that marriage believing that the husband or the wife, they have total freedom. They can go out whenever they want, especially if it's for business. You go out to business dinners or business events. And in any case, when it comes time to do that, this is with the subtle
Dig.
control, and it's where you go out for business. I'll give you an example. Husband and wife, the husband goes out for business, has to go out to network. And the wife doesn't say you can't go. She doesn't get angry at the point of like yelling or anything like that. Oh, no, yeah, of course you have to go. It's for business. And totally acceptable. But then the next day, she has an attitude. She's, under the weather. She doesn't feel so good. And the husband says, well, what's wrong? The husband wants to make the wife happy. What's wrong? What can we do to make you? And in any case, the woman comes up with, well, you know that I have to get up early for work, and if you're out past a certain hour, I can't sleep if you're not in the bed with me. So, I can't go to sleep until you're home, and it's just not fair.
Again, that's a lack of communication.
Yes, it is. But that person hid that type of communication. That person didn't present that all the way through.
But they
present how?
In a smaller way. So, for instance, in the beginning of the relationship, you might go out with a couple of friends.
And if they never had an attitude, never displayed anything, what could that flag be
Well,
if it's not
Okay,
present?
I'm gonna tell you what the flag could be.
That's what I'm waiting for.
Okay, so if you're beginning in this relationship and you say, hey, listen, I'm gonna go out with a couple of friends tonight. Yeah, no problem. Where you going? Who you gonna be with? What's the number gonna be? What's the name of the place? and then you finish up the night.
That's a very big flag.
But no.
But
But in a subtle way, they'll do it. They won't say it like I just
Oh,
said it.
right,
They won't
right.
fire it off.
Right.
Okay.
But they'll say something like, "Oh, that's nice. Who you going out with?"
Right.
Or, "Oh, that's nice. Where you gonna be?"
Yes.
Or, "What time you going out?" Or, "What time you gonna get?" Not like
Where can I reach
not
you
the
if there's an
way
emergency?
not the way I'm firing it off
Right.
now.
Right. Okay.
But there are flags to where and a lot of times. When you begin in the relationship, a person might say, "Oh, isn't that great? They care about me, and
Yeah, and
they wanna know
that's
about my
another and
well-being."
that's another
But
thing.
that's not really. It could be possibly the case in some cases, but in
Right.
other cases, that's not the case.
It's their insecurities,
It's their
their jealousy.
insecurity.
It's
Right, and it could be trust too. It could be a
I-
trust issue.
yeah.
And that's one of the things that you shouldn't get into a marriage, even when you're in a relationship, and before you take that leap into marriage. If you have no trust of that person, and the only person who knows if they have trust or not is the person themselves.
right.
And if it's in your gut
Mm-hmm.
that this person is not trustworthy, then it's true. This person is not trustworthy.
I agree with you to a very big extent with that, but the person that in their gut feels that they can't trust the other person, it doesn't necessarily mean that that other person is not trustworthy. Because sometimes that person that feels it in their gut
could be
that the
their own
person it's their own
insecurity.
insecurities.
Right.
Many
It could be.
times it's their own insecurities or their own lack of trusting themselves, so they don't trust the other person, regardless of what the other person presents.
Well, that's true. So that means that person would have to feel non-trust with everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think so.
So if that person feels non-trust with everybody, and that should raise a big flag even before you get married, because if the person does not have trust, that's going to come out very quickly in a relationship, and it will keep on coming out
like you
over
said
and
before,
over and over again.
But like you said before, it comes out very
At
almost,
first,
almost
right.
hidden because you have the those little things like
Correct.
where
Right.
exactly you're going.
It will be subtle at first.
Yeah.
But as you progress, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, they're going to find out that this person absolutely has no trust in you.
And yes, and that's to go 2 years. That for me that's a big portion of your life. 2 years is a big portion.
Well, I knew my wife for 10 years before we got married.
That's awesome.
Right.
But
Because I wanted to make
Now-
sure that before I got married, I was making the correct decision.
Right. And yes, actually, when you start dating someone, how long, in your opinion, should you date someone before you actually are in a committed relationship?
Committed meaning what?
You know what? I'm not exactly sure. Can you help us out with this?
I don't know what you
Like,
mean. Do you
for instance,
mean,
moving in committed
Oh, okay.
or engagement
Well, I
committed,
think- all right.
because there's different levels of
or
commitment.
do you
okay.
just mean taking it to a serious level?
It's to a serious level. I think because in my opinion, I think that two people, let's say they're attracted to one another, so I think they should work on being friends at first. Of course, there's there's attraction and there's a lot of other things that are involved, but I think really get to know a person before you commit. And
He
when you
feels
say
people, and he's right, rush in physically too quickly these days, and that it means nothing nowadays.
They do.
So, right.
They do. A lot of people do rush in physically
Right.
now these days.
okay, so in your opinion, how
How
long
long?
do you think you should wait before you have what is the expression? Have intercourse.
To have intercourse? Well,
Yes,
that,
intercourse.
That all depends on the people. That I cannot.
I think there
cannot
should be a
sit-
minimum. I think there
but
should be a
I cannot
minimum.
sit here and say, oh yeah, well 6 months and that's when you
Right.
can have intercourse. That's not the way it goes.
Okay, I know things happen, but when you mix in that level of intimacy, that especially if the two people really don't know one another, you just mentioned 2 years. It would take sometimes 2 years before you would even notice some of those flags. Sometimes a person's married 10 years where they never really noticed the flags or they ignored it, and then 10 years into the relationship, now you have all this
But
stuff.
see-
So if you jump into that level of intimacy with intercourse, you're on a different field, and now it complicates a lot of other
It doesn't mean
things.
that what it used to mean anymore, though. People are on second, third dates, and it doesn't mean what it should mean.
Right, and I think, my opinion, I think two people should be in love before they actually have intercourse.
But that's not reality.
Right.
Maybe not,
Right.
but guess what? I think that should be the case. And I think if both parties, first of all, and I think people should really learn from a younger age, because right now, I mean, even when we were children, and I say all of us because we're in the same age group, when we were children, they were still having sex. Children were having sex. Our age, we were having sex. Young. They're doing it now. They're doing it before us. But I don't think that is healthy, and that really ruins and complicates a lot of relationships.
You're right about that. But however, the reality of the situation now in these days is that we have the internet.
Right.
We have social media.
Right.
So there is so much sexual content out there.
Right.
And
Not as much as when we were, say, growing up.
We
to
didn't
where
really we didn't have the internet.
If you wanted to get anything sexual in a content way, you would actually have to go to a store, buy a magazine,
Right.
and a lot of people wouldn't do that because they would feel embarrassed. They wouldn't want to walk into the store. So a lot of people stayed away from that. Now, with it being so accessible, and that now you can do it in the privacy of your own room without anybody knowing.
Right.
Okay, that changes the dynamics too when you're talking about intimacy. And I've dealt with people to where porn has ruined their marriage because what they see on the internet is what they want to be real. But a lot of times it's not real. They're actors, and they cannot get over that. So when they have their intimacy moment with their significant other, and it's not as it's portrayed on what they're watching through the internet or social media, then intimacy takes a fall, and that could lead to a ruined relationship and a ruined marriage.
Okay. But getting back, never mind. Okay, so people our age that are out there, and when I'm 29, how old are you guys? You don't have to answer that. You know, I'm about 29. So in our age group, you're out there, you're looking for the one at this level. You're an adult, all right? Everyone's basically had intercourse. But I think you should make the decision to not jump into that right away. Where you mentioned if everyone's doing it, if everyone's jumping off the bridge, Kristen, you can jump off the bridge?
No, I agree, but it's difficult, but I also agree it does mess you up mentally.
Of course.
Because some men, and I know we had this discussion last time, I feel like some men just can block it out, not to be judgmental,
First of all,
doesn't matter.
men are more emotional than women.
You keep saying that. I don't agree.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking as a woman, it means something and it affects you. And
Well,
then if it's
well, if it means so much, why would you jump in the second or third date? Because everyone else is doing it?
No.
No, I agree. At this age, when it comes to
you should be responsible.
You should be responsible because you should know
You're directing that to me?
You definitely should know better.
Whoa,
You should be responsible.
I am saying in general, our
Okay.
audience, be responsible because that is a big deal. Just like you
Yes.
just said, it's a big deal.
It is.
And you're saying that other people don't really see it that way. Guess what? You don't want to be with those people that don't see it that way because it is a big deal.
But however, at this age, I mean, we should all be mature enough to when you do see somebody to say, hey, listen, I don't want this to be a long-term relationship. I'm not looking for a long-term
Yes,
relationship.
but
if that's
now.
the case.
I'm just looking
You don't
right
live
now
on Staten Island.
to have a little fun
Right.
and to hang out, and we'll have a good time sharing each other's
Right.
company.
But they don't.
But I'm not looking for long-term. So now if you're not willing to do that, and if you're going to fake to the other person.
Yeah, and here's another thing. And
that's a problem as well.
Yes, because I can tell you right now, younger, there's a lot of women that would always say, oh, no, yeah, we just hang out, we're just friends, friends with benefits, we'll, have a good time, and, yeah, sure, we could do that and have fun, and the next thing you know, no, that's not what they had intended, because a lot of people, men and women, think that they can change the person. Think, okay, well, he just wants to have fun, we'll have fun, but he's going to be mine, or she's going to be mine, or they,
you just hit the nail on the head.
Go ahead.
Because when you're going through, before you're married, and when you're going through that dating phase, and even when you see these flags coming out, and they do, trust me, the people see
I
these
know.
flags.
Right.
The
That's
people
exactly-
outside of the relationship see the flags.
And that's exactly what they say to themselves. They say, well, I'm the one here. I can change it.
Right.
It's kind of like, listen, it's kind of like this. It's the not me theory, right? Meaning that 50% of all marriages end in divorce in this country, right? So why do people still get married? I'm going to tell you why people still get married. It's because it's not going to happen to them. Oh, no, they got divorced because of infidelity. No, they didn't communicate well. That's why they got divorced. It will never happen to me. Same thing with drunken driving, right? Every
Right.
day, every week you hear somebody else is killed by a drunken driver, and how many people tonight are going to get into their cars and drink and drive. And the reason why is because they're not the ones that are going to get into the accident. So it's kind of like the not me theory, to
Right.
where, yeah, I know the flags, I see the flags. However, I can change those flags. And a lot of times you can't, because sometimes it's just that's who the person is.
So, what are some of the flags? What are some of the flags?
Well, I believe me
Like-
and Kristen were talking about them before. Mental flags when you give a backsided compliment.
Okay.
That can definitely be a flag.
Right.
If maybe you were running a little late to something, or maybe you said something that the other person didn't want you to say in a social setting, and then they get a little aggressive.
Right.
I mean, that
You can see that,
these
yeah.
are all flags.
Yes.
It's just that people are saying, "Oh well, you know what? That was my fault. I shouldn't have said
He
it."
had a bad day.
Right,
He
he
was
had a
just at
bad
work.
day.
Right, they make
So-
excuses,
right.
and of course, then that goes and taken it to another level with the abuse, and that's where the
Right.
abused husband or the abused wife will say that it's, they put it on, well, he had a bad day, or, she had a lot too much stress, and
Right.
so, yeah, all right, and again, what is that, the communication, but it's got to be beforehand. Too many people don't do that, so one of the big
But it's
messages,
but it's also lying to yourself.
there's a lot of people that do that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
And that expression, "love is blind,"
Right.
it's 100% true. Because I could tell you, I can give you the facts, and I can give you the evidence. This is what this person is doing to you. This is what's happening in your relationship, and they won't see it. And I've dealt with clients like that, and it's very difficult to break through that barrier. But once you break through that barrier, and usually able to break through that barrier, unfortunately, an event took place, and then they'll finally admit to themselves,
Right.
"Yeah, this is it.
Right.
This I can't have."
I want to, what was it on? I drive a lot back and forth from Florida to New York, and I'll listen to audiobooks. And at the end of, I think it's seven habits for highly effective people, whatever it is. At the end of the book, he brought up a scenario where he was at one of his conventions, and he sees a gentleman that he sees there all the time, and they started having a conversation, and the gentleman said, "Yeah, I still come to these things. I'm not having fun like I used to. I'm not really enjoying it." And he said, "Well, why? What's going on?" And he said, "Every time I'm here, my wife will ask me. And she doesn't do it like in a mean way. She doesn't do it like she'll say, did you have breakfast? Oh, where did you go for breakfast? Who was there?
That's what he said.
How many people? Did you were at lunch? Oh, who was there? How many people did you? What did they say? But not in an aggressive way, but
Right.
like
Right.
working it into the conversation. Oh,
Right.
are you having fun? Oh, what did you do? And did you stay late? Like all these questions, and he said it's just not fun for him, and he's really miserable, but he has to go to those things. He used to love doing it, and he's miserable.
Well, he's miserable because he knows his wife doesn't trust him.
Well, that's what he didn't even realize all of that stuff. He just, about the third degree, but then he realized, and she never said what was really bothering her. He said that she never mentioned what really bothered her, and what really bothered her was that that's how they met. They met at one of those conventions.
So she felt that he was
And
going to meet
so
somebody else.
if
at that
she's not
convention.
with him, he's going to meet someone
Right.
else, and
Yeah.
and again, but
That's lack of communication.
right, but you know what though? When you have all of those ingredients and you don't notice, because there's, like you said, love is blind, and even if you have your friends, relatives, whoever, pointing out some of those red flags or some of because sometimes those flags aren't so evident. Sometimes they're just very
subtle,
very
sure.
subtle, and like you said, love is blind. They get into that, and now it's all the way to that point. And yes, communication, but if you didn't realize it, if you didn't see it, and if they were never separated, because there's a lot of people that go into relationships that spend all of their time together. There are people that have been in a relationship for 10 or 20 years and have never gone out separately.
That's not healthy either.
And no, it's not healthy, but this is another thing, so you don't notice it.
Well, that happens also. It's funny that you mentioned that. That happens because you can become lost in your role when you're married. Meaning this, once you have kids and you're doing everything that you need to do with the kids, say go to football, go to wrestling, go to basketball, go to cheer, do this, do that. You're constantly running around. And really, you don't get a lot of time with your significant other to sit down and truly have a conversation because you're
Right.
always running around. Not saying that you don't. You might go out to eat on a special occasion or something like that. And even sharing the same bed is sometimes difficult because who's sick, who's scared, who's doing this, who's doing that. And what happens in some instances, and I've had clients that this happened to, where now the kids are all grown, they don't need you
And you have
anymore.
nothing in
You don't have
common,
the schedule,
right?
and they both look at each other and
Yep.
say,
Don't know
"Now
what to say to each other.
Right.
Now what do we do here?" Because they're so used to having the kids as a buffer.
So that's one of the reasons we're doing this show, is
Yes.
that before you get into any type of relationship, I always say work on yourself. So if you do notice that you do have certain insecurities, work on the insecurities.
Absolutely.
Bring yourself to have that confidence, that love in yourself, because if you have a healthy love and respect for yourself, it's going to show, and you're going to attract, and you're going to know that you're worth having someone of a higher quality that is going to communicate. You are going to have that mutual respect. So if you have those ingredients, those are the ingredients that you need before you go into all of the, especially marriage, because like you said, people don't notice these things. But if you work on yourself and you bring yourself to a point of with the confidence, the courage, and you can really be happy with yourself, because too many people also look for happiness outside of themselves. It really comes from within. Happiness is always about you within.
I have a question.
My co-host has a question.
I
We
was
should
in
zoom in on her.
No.
What's the question?
I was in a situation.
important to zoom in.
All right. I was in a situation where I knew someone was lying. I'm not going to get into the details.
Well, this gets real.
So I bought a book on how you can tell, because there are signs
Sure.
if someone's lying.
Mhm.
And then I was so interested, I read 2 more books on it.
Mhm.
And they hit every one on the head. So can you tell us some of the, I mean, down to eyes, body language. It was so interesting to me.
Okay, so right away, if a married person comes to me and they're on the fence whether or not their spouse is cheating, let's
Right.
just say, right? And right away I tell them, if you have a feeling that they're cheating,
Right.
they're cheating.
Unless listen, there's infinite levels of
No,
whatever's
but
going
it's
on in the
a
mind.
different feeling.
No, because I'm telling you, there are people that have severe and serious insecurities that also, they project their insecurities, their whatever, on themselves and on other
No,
people.
you're definitely correct. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to answer Kristen's question was that if you have the feeling that they're cheating, I say they're probably cheating. And the reason I say that is because there have been flags already, because that's the way you feel.
Right.
Okay.
Meaning, okay, the phone's ring. Anytime I see a new number on the phone, he hurries up and picks up the phone, or she hurries up and picks up the phone, or the phone is ringing, somebody hangs up constantly, or he or she says that they're going to go out one place, and just to check, you go to see if they're there. And they're
That's a
not there.
problem, by the way.
And
If the
that's
person
a problem with
is-
trust. However, when a person gets that feeling, whether or not somebody is if there's infidelity involved, the first thing that any normal human being is going to do out of human instinct is to investigate it. And one of the ways you investigate it is to say, "I'm stuck at work tonight." Okay, you're stuck at work tonight. Well, maybe I should take a ride. Not to go in and cause a scene, because that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But are you really at work? Because if you're not really at work, then where are you? Or if you're really not hanging out with your friends at this particular place, then where are you? Okay. So
Right.
and then you'll approach them and say, "Hey, listen." Now, what I would not do is I wouldn't say, "Oh, I went there last night," because that's just going to turn
Right.
into a fight. What you'll say is, "Oh, well, how was your night last night?"
And then if they continue to give
right,
that
who'd
information.
you hang out with?
Usually the voice
what
like
did you
cracks
talk
or
about?
it goes up a pitch.
Well, you'll see people sometimes trying to tap dance and things of that nature. Usually, when somebody wants to get out of a conversation, they'll say, "Nothing really big happened last night. We just talked."
Right.
Okay, nothing funny happened. Nobody said anything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing happened where you just sat and looked at each other the whole night. It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
So there are flags
Now-
to when people feel inside that somebody is cheating on them.
What about this is absolutely wrong, and it's a lack of communication, of course, and then there's the trust. But you have, if that's the case, if let's say the husband has a feeling that the wife is cheating, right? And you do the whole scenario about where she calls and say, "Hey, I have to stay late at work," and following your suggestion of checking up to see if they're really there, and they're not there, but they're not cheating. What they're doing is, or something came up, or they are going out with their friends just to get away because they didn't want to go home right away for whatever reason. Of course, that goes to communication, but it's still not cheating. I just want to clarify that it's still not cheating.
No, it's lying.
It is lying,
Right.
and that is a problem.
Well, it's a very big problem.
Big problem, yes.
Because once you start lying about that, what else are you going to lie about?
Okay.
And why are you lying? Because you don't want to deal with that person because they're jealous or they won't let you go.
And not
or
only that, it's an obvious breakdown of the relationship.
Right.
Right.
And eventually, since they're not home because they don't want to be home, eventually they're going to bump into somebody out there
Yes.
and say, this is it. This is the person that I need
Right.
to be with.
So the message here is, if they're up to that point, do they work on it before something happens, or do they get out of the relationship? Do they get out of the marriage? If there's the breakdown of any type of communication, the trust, that's it.
If trust and communication broke down, very, very difficult to get back from it. I'm not going to say it never happens, but it's extremely difficult to get back to the place that you were. And very rarely does it happen. And I've seen people go back into the relationship.
Oh, it happens way too
and
much.
it doesn't work out. Or I've
Way
seen,
too much.
I've dealt with clients to where they got married again for the second time. The same people.
The
And it was the same. It was the same outcome.
Yeah,
Eventually,
wow.
a divorce.
Well,
So, can you try to work it out? Yeah, you can. However, what are the chances that it's actually going to work out? Probably very low.
my personal opinion, I believe that everyone should have their own constitution before they even get into a serious relationship. And one of those things is, if there is ever cheating, that's it. There is no working around. So if you're dating,
I don't see how anyone could, to be honest with you.
if anyone could do what?
Like you just said, if there's cheating, that's it. There's no working around it. How could you? I could never
Right.
trust someone.
Well, there's too many. Like you just said, there's too many. There's people that get married. There's people that get remarried.
they do,
from
and people
cheating, and I
stay
think
because of
that's
the
crazy.
kids, and
Well,
you don't
that's
trust
another
that
thing.
person.
No, and that's another thing. Just because you have children doesn't mean you should stay together.
No.
Especially if you're in a miserable marriage. Even if you don't have any fighting or abuse, the children still sense
Yes.
the energy, they
The
sense
lack
it.
of emotion.
The lack of
yes.
affection. Just the lack of affection alone can, not necessarily, but can damage a child for life and affect all of their personal relationships.
Well, it will affect their relationships because they could see what's going on in their own household and say, well, this is what a relationship is supposed to look like, when, in fact, it's not supposed to look like that. It's called, when we're dealing with it from the criminal justice standpoint, when you're dealing with abuse in marriages,
Mhm.
a lot of the time, the kids will be abusive themselves.
Yes.
And you'll say to yourself, well, how can that happen? They saw firsthand, they
Yeah.
had to live through it. However, it's the cycle of violence, okay?
And they think
You
it's
watch,
okay.
and this is the way a relationship is supposed to go.
Right.
So, yes, I do agree with you from that standpoint. But also, if a person gets caught cheating per se, all right, there are other variables that go into why that person might not leave. That person might not be the breadwinner in the relationship
Right.
and can't leave.
Right.
But you
That
know
person
what?
might not have health insurance. That person might not be able to get an apartment. That person might not have credit. That person might not have this or have that, or have the resources from family that are able to help that person out and take them
Yeah.
in.
So what do you suggest for someone like that?
That's an extreme situation, I think, and I think that probably does happen a lot, where they're not the breadwinner. They were cheated on. They're not the breadwinner, and they do stay in that situation just because of. For me, that's not healthy.
No, it's definitely not healthy, without a doubt.
You're
I
saying
don't think
it's-
any normal person would tell you that it's healthy. However, it's a fact. And what would I do in a situation
What would you
like
recommend
that?
to someone
What
who's
you
in a
have to do in a
situation?
situation like that is, obviously you're not going to tell the person, well, it's over.
Right.
You're not going to. What you should do is set up your life to where eventually
You
you're
can-
able to leave.
Right.
Right. Thank
Okay.
you very much
You
for saying
don't
that.
you
because
don't
that's
right
important.
away break up the relationship. You set up your life in blocks. All right, get a job, get this, get that, and by the time everything falls into place, then you say, I've had it. I can't do it anymore.
Right.
Okay, so if a client comes to you and goes through that whole process where they don't have money, they don't have resources, they don't have anything.
I work
So-
on building their
Right,
lives.
so building their
lives.
So that means, all right, well, you're going to make a plan.
Mhm.
And what skills do you have? All right, now get a job. If you have to go back to school, if you have to learn
Absolutely.
something, go and do it. This is what you have to do. You know that the person cheated. First of all, cheating, especially if you're married, cheating, that's the ultimate betrayal. There's no coming back from that. I'm sorry. I'm absolutely against cheating. So you shouldn't get into a relationship, obviously, if there's all these flags and everything else, if that's going to happen. But you get the person to build up their lives. build up their credit, build up their knowledge base, network, whatever they have to do, whatever skills that they have, whatever skills that they could learn to get out of that situation.
Yeah, I have a with clients who are in that situation. I have a 5-year plan.
It's a 5-year plan?
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to happen in 5 years. It
Right.
could happen in less time, could take maybe a little longer, depending on what type of person that, that I'm dealing with and what type of personality and other things. But I do have a plan for these clients. And I say, well, this is what you need to do first. This is what you need to do second. This is what you need to do third. By year's end, by 2 years end, this is where you should be, okay? And once they start hitting those goals and those milestones, their perception of themselves, their confidence becomes higher. Because let's face it, a lot of times in the relationship, especially when we're talking about infidelity, once you find out or you think your significant other is cheating on you, your self-esteem goes right down.
Right.
So now we have to build up that self-esteem, and then you set goals. And then, hey, listen, you just hit your milestone. You just hit your 1-year milestone. It's a goal. Let's go for the second year. And then they start building up their esteem. And I see it right in their faces once I tell them, hey, you just hit your goal. How do you like it? I love it. Yeah, let's do more. And once they start hitting those goals, before you know it, they're off and running.
Now, the 5-year plan, I believe there should be a plan whether you're single, never been married, whether you're just broke up, whether you're divorced. I think that you should, the moment you're divorced or going through a divorce, I think you should come up with a plan, whether it's a 3-year plan, 5 year. There should be a plan for you to build yourself to be the person that you want to be, to have a beautiful, healthy, loving relationship.
Yes.
So what are some of those things? Building your self-esteem, your confidence, working on you.
It's very hard to do, though.
But it's important.
A traumatic experience.
This is the most important. I can tell you right now, this is the most important thing. A relationship. The two people having that beautiful, perfect, healthy, loving relationship. That's the most important thing. Whether you're in high school, you want to be with someone. You want that relationship. Through college, at every point, I know people that are in their 70s and 80s that are single right now, whether they're divorced or widowed. They still want that perfect relationship.
Right.
There's people that are almost on their deathbed that they still want to be in a relationship. They want to be with that person. Maybe it's not realistic, obviously, in your deathbed.
Because there is no such thing as a perfect relationship.
Everyone has a different idea of what is perfect. But when I use the word perfect a lot, and yes, it can be, for some people, where they're putting like a lot of ideals into something, it can be dangerous, but strive for that perfection, whatever that means to you, and each person has a different idea of what perfect is. Now, I'm talking about the mutual respect, the kindness, the caring, the compassion.
The way a relationship should be.
The way a relationship should be. And so when I say perfect, I'm referring to the love, the affection. I'm referring to the mutual respect, the communication.
Okay, because
having fun together.
Because during the course of the marriage, and I'm sure if you've been married long enough, the things that you have mentioned, some of those things are going to break down.
Yes.
Okay? Not break down to the point where you're actually getting a divorce or something like that, but they're going to go through a transformational period to where you have to build that back up again, whether it be intimate. Let's take intimacy. If you've been with your significant other for, say, 15 years, intimacy can lack, okay? And if that starts to happen, that doesn't mean you have a total breakdown of intimacy. That just means that you have to try something new now. You have to take it down a different avenue. So to have a really solid,
I was waiting.
But to have a really solid relationship with everything that you guys just talked about, mutual respect and this and that. When you feel
But
yourself,
if you have all those ingredients, if there is a breakdown, let's say in the intimacy for whatever reason,
but it could be a breakdown in anything.
Okay.
It could be a breakdown in mutual respect.
Really?
Well,
If you have all the ingredients, where does the breakdown of mutual? So we're talking about it when a crisis comes, because that's another thing.
No. Like for instance, let me give you an instance with breakdown of.
And then we have to get to sex because this is very important to her.
Okay. And then we'll get a break.
God.
Like for instance,
you drinking?
Like for instance, mutual respect.
Yes.
So let's just say, for instance, the wife stays home with the kids, all right, and the husband goes out to work. Now, taking care of kids is a big job.
I would take a 36-hour shift in the hospital any day.
Yeah, and a lot of people would say that, and it's tough, right? It's a 24-hour day,
time out. And next thing
7 days a week.
Just time out for 1 second. I'm sorry. Time out. You're probably one to say that childbirth is painful.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Because
Okay.
it's not. It's a misconception.
All right. So, however, what the husband is doing, I'm sure, is hard. Also, has to deal with the boss, has to deal with the commute,
Absolutely.
has to deal with this,
A lot
has
of
to deal
stuff,
with that. So when the husband comes home,
He
they
wants
could
nothing.
be aggravated,
Right.
and I'm sure the wife could be aggravated, and a breakdown of mutual respect can occur when the other person doesn't see what the other person is going through. Like, for instance, like, she doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about. You know, my boss is on my back. I have deadlines. I gotta hit traffic. I gotta wait an hour for traffic. I remember one time I was talking to a client, and he actually told his wife, when the commute from the bed to the refrigerator becomes 60 miles, then you can come talk to me. That's a breakdown in mutual respect, because obviously they're not going to be doing the travel. But
You
let me
know-
see you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
You know, that's
And that is a
take care
fight.
and take care of 103
But that's
fever.
So many married
Okay,
people.
but
And
that's-
that's where mutual respect can break down. So
You know,
that's
but
where
if
both
you
of them
have-
have to say stop.
right.
Okay, you have to understand where I'm coming from. I'll understand where you're coming from,
So
and
I-
that goes back to communication.
But I have to say this. That's actually, yes, that was an example. It wasn't a breakdown of the mutual respect, because you have to have the respect for one another to say, okay, he lashed out or she lashed out,
Right.
okay, and now you'll sit down and communicate with one another to say, hey, this is going on and this is why I reacted that way,
Well,
and I apologize.
right, don't-
When you have the mutual respect, there's the apology, and of course when you apologize, saying sorry is not enough. You have to truly mean it. And
right.
And
But don't take my words to mean that it's a total breakdown to where you can't come back from it. No, it's a breakdown. It's a breakdown in the sense where you're feeling resentment towards that person because
Right.
you're saying they don't understand what I have to go through each day.
But that was a brief resentment that was communicated right away.
Correct. Yeah, I agree
The
with
breakdown, a real breakdown, because that was just an incident. A real breakdown is when it's not
that. Communicated right
communicated,
away.
and then
it
there's the
morphs.
resentment.
Correct.
And
yeah.
when you have that is a true breakdown of the mutual respect and then of course the
Correct.
breakdown of everything.
that's what
if
he's
you
saying.
But
but
that's
if you have all
exactly
the
what I'm saying,
ingredients, but
yeah.
if you have all of the ingredients,
Some people don't, though.
Right.
but that's what we're striving for.
Correct.
We're striving for all those ingredients. That's
Right.
why you work on you, and you do not settle for anything less. You do not
That's
settle for
another
someone
thing a lot
that
of
is-
people do lately.
Okay.
Lately, they've been doing that
It-
for the longest time.
Well, you look at somebody like me.
Wait a second. You're married how long?
Well, I've been with my wife for 30 years.
30 years.
And we've been married for 17 years. Okay, and being with my wife for 30 years. Now, I love my wife, and I exactly knew at what point in time I wanted to marry her, because this was the girl for me. I knew this was the woman in my life who I wanted to be with and have kids with and share a family with, because she was that great, and she's still that great. However, I've seen from the other perspective where people are in a relationship for a certain amount of time, say 2, 3, 5, whatever, 8 years, and everybody's asking, when are you going to do it? When's it going to happen?
Oh, when you're gonna get married.
Propose?
Oh,
Right.
okay.
When you're going to get married? So people sometimes can get married for all the wrong reasons, and one of them is because they feel, I guess this is the next step.
Right.
And that,
And if
that
you're
should
going
be
in-
the reason.
and if you're
It should
going into
never
a
be the reason.
marriage saying, well, this is just the next step, and you're not going into it because I love this person and I want to spend the rest of my life, it's just because everybody thinks this should be the
Right,
next
and it's
step.
expected. So,
Then
but that's absolutely the wrong. Yeah, that's the wrong-
Absolutely.
So, you started dating her when you were in 8th grade.
Correct.
8th
Oh,
grade.
how
Wow.
cute.
Great.
So it's not. It's even before high school. So you're not even high school sweethearts. You're like junior high sweethearts.
Yes.
all the
junior high
way
school
through.
sweethearts, yeah.
Awesome. Now, on a very serious note, because you married that long, have you ever wanted to strangle her?
Strangle her physically? No.
Well, in your mind, like upset, like
Have
really
I ever
upset?
been upset with my wife? Yeah, on numerous occasions.
All
I've
right,
been
we
upset
we
with my
attempted a
wife.
little gotcha journalism. We almost had you on camera. We almost had you on camera stating something. Okay, so you have the perfect marriage?
No, like I said before, I don't think any marriage is perfect. A marriage is something that you have to work
He has
at.
the perfect
I know.
ingredients.
Yes,
Do you have the perfect ingredients?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And well, it's kind of like making a cake. Are you going
Right.
to do you have the ingredients to make a cake? Yes, you do.
Okay.
However, is that cake going to be the perfect cake? No, but it's a cake that you like, that you love, because you made it.
Okay.
And that's what a relationship is.
Okay.
It's not perfection to where everybody has to love each other at all. I mean, everybody has to like each other at all times, or you never get into a fight, or that's not what it's about. It's about building that cake to where you look at it and you say, well, that's my cake.
Right.
That's my relationship, and I'm proud of that.
Awesome. Well, I'm very happy that you are married that long and with your wife that long. That is beautiful.
It is.
And it's rare.
For today, it's very rare.
Very rare.
Very rare.
And you know what, I don't know if we don't have the audience yet, because we're waiting for our future shows to have the audience, but I would like to do a round of applause.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, everyone
Thank
out
you,
there
Rod.
is applause.
Thank you.
Very nice. Now, by the way, that's one of the things to strive for. But how do you get there? How do you get all the ingredients? You don't jump into anything. You do not. You really, I think our last show, this is our second show, by the way, so we're still working through some of the kinks. But in our last show, we had a chakra specialist, Laura, and like she said, it was the interview process.
Feng Shui.
Yeah, the feng shui. Yeah.
Okay.
What did I say?
Chakra.
Feng
okay.
shui. Well, chakra, feng shui. Throw it all together. Everything works.
All right.
In any case, she had mentioned like it's an interview process, and I think you really should. And like I said, if you have those plans, you said a plan with the crisis. I think you should have those plans before you even start dating. You have your requirements. You have. I would love to know. There's got to be certain questions and a list of questions to ask that you're not going to get the fake answers, where you're going to get those answers. And I think we're going to have psychologists on here, some psychiatrists.
That would be good to know.
Yeah, there's got to be a test. I would love to have a test that you could
That
really.
the person has to take before getting into the relationship. That you might just end the relationship on that.
No,
Or
you know,
I
not,
gotta take a
not
test.
handing
That's
it.
a little overbearing.
You know what? I'm worth it. I'm worth it, and I'm gonna give a test. And I want an essay, maybe more than one essay. I think that's important. You know what? Maybe
No,
an
but
essay.
to ask everyone has their protocol, sort of what they're looking for.
So most people have their so-called protocol because they really don't have like a plan. What?
What do you mean they don't have a plan?
Do you have a plan?
Yes, I don't have a plan.
What is your plan? Oh, wait,
No.
you just said yes. Now
No,
you don't.
no.
What is
I'm
your
saying
plan?
I look for certain things in a person.
Size of the arms.
Very funny.
Well, are you attracted to men that work out?
Yes, but what is wrong with that?
There is nothing wrong with that. That's what you're attracted to.
Yes.
Okay, so you're on camera now saying that. So future suitors, make sure you work out. And by the way, what do you have, a 3-year plan? No, you're a little impatient. So let's go with a 1-year plan. Start working out now. Okay? And you are worth it, correct? Tell everyone.
I hope so.
See, now there you go. Not the hoping. Now, I know I'm worth it. And obviously, he's worth it, but he is taken.
Yeah, very much taken.
Very
yes.
much taken. And you have children.
I have 3 kids. Yes.
Now, one thing though, a lot of people do say, you never really know how much the other person loves you or how strong your relationship is or how strong your marriage is until there is a crisis. That's a very
I would agree to that. But remember, there's different forms of crises. You could have small crises and large.
Oh,
crises.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's the expression.
Yeah.
There is an expression that unless there's that crisis, you really don't know until you have that crisis, or you find out if there's
what the relationship is
right,
built on.
right.
A lot. If you look at the studies, which I have, a lot of times when a couple loses a child, more times than not, they get a divorce.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's a huge crisis that they're going through, and whether or not that relationship can deal with it is a different question. Also, if you read the studies too, people with twins are more likely to get a divorce because having twins, especially in the beginning, is going to be a lot more difficult than just the one. So it's not so much crises to where you're like, wow, this is. It could be something as just having twins and. Could your relationship is it strong enough, or does everybody have the same temperament?
You have twins.
I have twins, yeah.
He has like the golden relationship.
I do because I have the golden
Seriously,
wife. I really do.
That's amazing.
Yes, you do. Let's hear it for his
I
wife.
was going to close.
Let's hear it for his wife. And that's it. You have to have both. You have to have the husband and the wife both working for that beautiful relationship, both working toward.
Like you're saying, it's listen, it's work. Don't think you're going to go into a marriage and everything's going to be great and every day is going to be great, because it's not. You're going to go through ups, you're going to go through downs. It's just how you deal with those ups and downs.
Right. And that's why you work on yourself before you even get into a relationship. Never mind getting married. You work on yourself so that you have the ingredients in you that you are able to deal with a lot of the stuff that's going to happen in a relationship and then eventually in a marriage. And you're going to know to be or not to be with a certain person as you're going through the dating process.
So tell us tell us a little bit more about what you do. So you told us how you helped someone who had to get back on their feet.
Mhm.
What are some other scenarios?
Okay, so for instance, if I'm working the business side of crisis management, you look at Chipotle, that incident that they had with the bacteria in their food 2 years ago. What had happened was they were getting bacteria into their product and was making a lot of people sick. The way Chipotle dealt with that crisis was a total wrong way. One, the CEO did not get out in front of those cameras saying that we know we're experiencing a crisis right now. We're doing something about it, and here are the steps we're doing to resolve it. Secondly, the CDC looked at it and looked at what was actually contaminating their food and came out with a report. And right away, Chipotle said, no, we don't agree with that report. Well, if the CDC and scientists are working on the report, then the report is true. You cannot deny something that is a fact. People are getting sick from your food. That's a total way not to handle a crisis. Now you look at Richard Branson. He's the CEO of Virgin Airliners, and he's doing space travel. He wants to be the first person to take regular people up into space, like on a vacation or something like that. And the first person they brought up on one of his ships, it blew up and it killed the person. What he did was he dropped everything. He went to the location. He surveyed the location. He found out what was going on. And right away, he got out in front of those cameras and he said, this is what happened. He was the mistake. And this is how we're going to try to correct it. He answered all the hard questions. He wasn't incognito. He wasn't missing in action. He was there throughout the whole thing. That's the way you deal with a crisis. Something like Alex Rodriguez, okay? Sports figures. If you're going to lie about something, make sure there's not a paper trail that you're leaving behind. Because if there's a paper trail, especially now in these days, they're going to find the paper trail. So for instance, did you ever do steroids? No, I never did steroids. However, the paper trail is from here until Kingdom Come. I mean, you've bought multiple steroids from people. You made your cousin the middleman. I mean, there are people that you can contact. So if you are going to lie about something, make sure that that lie cannot be verified.
Which is the basis for everything. Don't lie. Be truthful.
And that's what I was just about to say. So instead of lying, which you shouldn't do, just be truthful, because where the problems usually occur is with the lie. It's not with the actual event that took place, because the actual event that took place you could always fix. It's the cover up that always gets people in trouble. So these are the things that I go over with business. These are the things that I go over with people. So that's a little with what I do when it comes to my business with crisis management.
Well, thank you very much. By the way.
Yes.
Awesome. Are you about to fall asleep?
No.
Okay. By the way, what were we talking about before with the actual? We only have a few minutes left, so what are some of the things that you would like to know about the next guy?
About the next
Yeah.
guy?
There's some flags.
I mean, honestly, I have a huge trust issue. So
if she has a trust issue, what are some of your suggestions on working through those trust issues? Why do you have the trust issues? I think you should examine before you jump into anything.
I know why I have the trust issues.
Okay, do you know how to fix it yet?
No,
see, that's where I would come in. I would come in and we would set up a plan for Kristen regarding her trust issues, and we would talk about it, and we would really find out where they're coming from. You know where they're coming from on the surface, but now you got to dig deeper into, okay, why? I know I have a trust issue with this person, but why do I still have a trust issue with this person who I don't even know yet?
Right.
Okay, so there's something deeper in there that we get to say, hey, listen, not everybody's going to treat you like the last person treated you.
Right.
You have to get over it.
And then, you know what? That's very important to bring up because too many people, when they do go into that next relationship, they're bringing all of that baggage, all of their pain and hurts, and a lot of them project what they experience or their bad relationship before, and they're projecting all those characteristics onto the next person.
That's correct.
And sometimes not right in the beginning, but that one little thing that happens, boom, they automatically projecting all the bad stuff from the previous relationship. So there is no the communication. There is no, because right away now it's always happening to them.
Right.
So it's not.
And that's a terrible thing. Sorry to interrupt you. But it is because honestly, I am not a jealous person. I think guys should have the guy night, girls should have the girl night. Like, I encourage all of that. This experience with me totally destroyed me and made me now not trust people.
Right, because now your self-esteem is possibly low. Then
Right.
we would get it. We would get it higher. We would definitely get it higher. The plan. I would look at. I would tailor. I usually tailor plans for the client, so there's not a one-size-fits-all plan.
Right.
I would really have to. There's questionnaires that I would have you fill out. I would get a little sense of who you are before we moved, even with a plan, and we would get your self-esteem, because I think that's the major part right now is your self-esteem, and that's why you're losing the trust issue. Because once you have self-esteem, it's easier to build trust in that person.
Yes.
Right.
And again, the main theme is to always work on you. So building up your self-esteem, building up your kindness for everyone in the audience. Before you go into a relationship, maybe you're looking, maybe you want to be with someone, but before you really start looking, work on yourself. Bring yourself to be who you want to be with the confidence, trusting yourself. And I guess that's it. We're done. Thank you very much, Keith, for being here.
Thank you for having
I don't know
me.
if they even hear us, but they still got us on the video. So,
I guess so.
you know, I thought we had 2 more minutes. It's the clock's running down. Brian, can you hear us? Can the TV hear us? Oh, the TV can hear us too. Well, I wish I would have known that. I thought when the music comes on, we're done. Keith, thank you so much for being here. We got a lot of good information.
Yes.
Did you get a lot of good information?
Yes, pleasure meeting you.
And of course, if you have any questions out there in the audience, please email us. We'd like to address some of your concerns and some of the questions that you have before you even get into a relationship.
If you would like to contact me, if you have a personal crisis or an organizational crisis, you could always go to Imprimis, IMPRIMISCMC @gmail.com, and that's my business email. And whatever you have, I will get back to you right away, and we'll be on the path of fixing your crisis right away.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I have no idea if they can still hear us. Can the TV hear us, Brian? Brian, so the people that are watching us can hear us right now. So why did you put the music on so early? Oh, okay. I have no idea. By the way, this is our second show, so we're still working through some of the intricacies of...
Well, if I would have known this, I would have never come on.